Hello, everyone. Glad to have you back to the Speakers Bureau, St. Lucie County Public School Speakers Bureau. Very supportive by our school board as well as our superintendent. We go all throughout not just the district, but the community, asking people to come and share their life story with our student population at St. Lucie County Public Schools. We want our young people to understand that everyone has a story, and that in spite of some of the things in their story that could have allowed them to fail or allowed them not to become who they are in life now, they were able to be overcomers. And so we want you young folks to understand that you too, no matter what the dilemma is, if you have very supportive parents, you make sure that you climb on the back of that support. If you have a supportive grandmother or a supportive one-parent family, and they love you and they support you, climb on the back of your loved ones that want you to do well in life. And then if you come from a situation where you don't have that support, you can support yourself. Believe in yourself. And go for it. Go for your dream. Put the work in. And so we share stories so that you can understand that we too understand what you may be going through based on what others have already traveled. And maybe we can impart some wisdom to you and some enlightenment that, yes, you too can obtain and get to where you want to get to in life. So today we have Dr. Danny Hoey. And I'm just going to read off some of his accomplishments and what he has done in this community since he's been here. Dr. Danny Hoey, he's an associate professor of English, joined IRSC in 2011 as the assistant professor of English. He currently serves as the chair of the English department, communications, and modern language department. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree and a Master of Art degree in English and Creative Writing, along with a Master of Art degree in Africana Studies and a Bachelor of Art degree in English. Well, you've done a whole lot of going to school.
Yes, ma'am.
And so he actively participates in the Association of Writers and Writing Programs, the Modern Language Association, and the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Inc. His essay, Dutchmen, The Black Body and the Law, was published this past May in the Modern Language Association series, Approaches to Teaching Amari Baraka's Dutchmen. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
The Butterfly is his first novel. I'm so glad that I know writers, because when I write mine, I know who to go to help out. It won the Fourth Word First Winter 2013 Debut Fiction Award, and the Browns Award also as well. So, Dr. Danny Hoey.
Nice to see you, Dr. Mills.
It's nice to have you here. You were just a speaker.
Yes, ma'am.
At one of our schools, and that was Forest Grove, I believe.
Yes, it was.
And how did that go?
Actually went really well. I made some connections with some students, and I told myself that I'm going to have to go back and actually work with them. So we asked if they wanted us to come back. They said that they did. So we made some connections with some students. So it was great.
That's wonderful. And I'm so glad to hear that you made the type of connection where you want to follow up with those students, because they need that. They need those mentors in their lives to be able to look to and just see what you've accomplished and done, but also that you care enough that you'll come back.
Yes.
And so we do appreciate that, because we know how busy you are. Share with us, what does your title all entails? Why did you go into the field of study that you're in now?
Okay, so currently I'm an associate professor of English, and I teach Composition 1, Comp 2, American Literature, Creative Writing. I'm also the chair of one of the largest departments at Indian River State College, so I'm responsible for ensuring that we're making sure that we have quality in our courses, that I'm mentoring our adjunct faculty, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do, just managing the department and making sure that we are meeting the standards of the college and making sure that we are actually getting students out. Because our course, Comp 1, is a gateway course. Every student that comes to Indian River State College has to come through our department. So
That's
our
right.
job, and one of my jobs, is to make sure that what we're providing is really helping them be successful once they leave our college. And I got paid, I thought about it. I wanted to do a job where I can get paid to read. I spent a lot of my lifetime reading. I thought, well, how do I work and read and still get paid at the same time? And this is one of the reasons why I chose to become an English professor.
That's great. So you had the love of reading.
Yes.
And just before you, we had a guest on, and we talked about going into the field that you love to do, whatever that might be, you know. Of course, you're here to inspire us with your story. So can you give us a little background of how did you grow up, and you know, and whatever that might be that can encourage our students?
Well, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, so I'm originally from Cleveland, and my mom was an avid reader. So I remember her sitting on the couch reading all these books, and I was like, oh man, I want to be like my mother, right? Who I love dearly. And so I started reading, and we grew up in the inner city of Cleveland, Ohio. But one thing,
Two-parent home?
No, just single parent.
Okay.
But my father was around, but my mother was the person who primarily raised us. And what I was always told, even though I didn't really understand it as a kid, was that you're going to go to college. Right? I didn't really know what that meant. I just knew that I liked to read. But my mother was like, you're going to go to college. I had other family members who told me I was going to go to college. And so I was able to, I went to school, I did my work, but there was still something about me that said, I don't know if college is the thing that I want to do. And I remember in the 11th grade, my 11th grade teacher, English teacher, Mrs. Speed, we were talking about future goals, and this was in the 90s. And I said, I don't know, I think I'm just going to hang out. And she was like, what? And so she stopped the class.
So
she
that
said,
was your goal,
that was just to hang out. She said, no, you're going to college. And I said, I don't know if I really want to go to college. She said, why not? And I didn't have an answer, because I'd heard it for so long, but I didn't really make plans to go. I was doing my work. I took all this.
It was good that someone was planting in your life, because no telling where you would have went.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when she said that, I went home and I said, I'm going to college, right? And so I figured out that, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is going to help me. I knew that I didn't want to be poor. Right? I knew that economically I wanted to be better than what we were, but I didn't know that college was the route. And so when she stopped me, and in front of the whole class, I was really embarrassed, but I was happy afterwards, because it really made me start to think about, what's next. I told the students at Forest Grove, when I was in middle school, I had an 8th grade algebra teacher who told me that I was going to flip burgers after I graduated,
So
right?
that's the other way that people can influence you if you're not careful.
And so in my mind, I knew it was not a good thing, but something in me so I started to act out. So I was not.
Just from that statement of saying that you're going to flip burgers. It re-emphasized in you that's probably who you were going to be.
And as an 8th grader, and I'm not saying anything is wrong with that, but I knew that I was in these advanced classes.
It's not going to give you a high enough paycheck.
Right.
There's something wrong with that.
Exactly. And so I was in this class with all these students who were in major work and honors, and I'm taking algebra in the 8th grade. He's telling me I'm going to flip burgers. And so that really had an impact on me. And so I started to think differently, but I still did my work because I knew that was important to my mother. But that 11th grade teacher, Mr. Speed, really kind of shifted and changed my life so that I knew that this was something that I had to do, something that I could do and be successful at it. That's why I've been in school so long.
Isn't it amazing how teachers can influence
Teachers
us?
Great teachers are amazing.
Teachers, we need them, and we need the best of the teachers. We actually have a referendum that's coming up in April, and so that we can increase our teachers' pay, because they are real, true warriors within the classroom, and they're the ones that, bottom line, the kids will either be encouraged and inspired and will learn or not. It boils down to that. And Martin County just had a referendum passed recently where they're able to increase their pay for their teachers, and we've lost some teachers going to Martin County, good teachers that we need right here. So we are hoping that the community understands this thoroughly, that we cannot lose our teachers. When I first became a board member in 2010, we were a low C district. we had a very low graduation rate in the 70 percentile. Because of our teachers, our principals, our administrators, everybody working together, but especially those educators, we have been able to rise up to a 1 point from an A district,
Yes,
point
one
away.
point away.
We're expecting to get that A district this year, as well as in the 90 percentile graduation rate with all the different subgroups closing the gap and coming up. So teachers, you said it over and over again already in your conversation, the influence that they had in your life. You want to add anything to that?
Well, I think that one of the main reasons why I'm an educator is because even when I went to college, I had some professors who were not very engaged. I mean, they knew their area, they knew their subject area very well, but they never really fully engaged me in the process. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is make sure that my students were fully engaged in their own process, their learning process, right? So I'm enthusiastic in the classroom because I love teaching literature and English, but I want them to also be enthusiastic and understand that they also have a responsibility, but they don't understand it unless they're actually engaged in the process with you. So I wanted to make sure that every time a student left my class, they realized that they had a responsibility, that they were engaged in the process, and that they could be successful. So I knew that I wanted to be a professor, but I knew
pay it forward.
Pay it forward,
Yeah.
right. And so when I'm with my students, and I tell students all the time, I'm gonna speak to you outside of class. So I'm in the cafeteria, I call students out by their name. They're like, oh, you remember my name? Of course I remember your name. You're important to me. I want to make sure that you're successful. So I wanted to be that type of professor because I had teachers in high school, particularly black women, who really made sure that I was on that path. So I think it was important for me to be that same type of professor.
I love what you're saying because I've worked with kids for so long, and I get very involved with them. I will talk directly to them and encourage them and befriend them and just be there for them. We have an after-school program that we work with a lot of our inner city children, as well as I'm doing a preschool program for a church. And I mean, I get so involved in those babies' lives. I get on the floor with them, and I'm, come in my office, and I don't have to. I'm the director of the program. But when they come in the morning, I want them to come in and give me a hug, and I'm encouraging them, and you can do it, and I'll see you later. And that type of stuff is so important in children's lives, isn't it?
It is, and it doesn't just stop with children. A lot of the research shows that the more engaged a student is, the more they know that you care about them, the more that they're going to work for you in the classroom, and the more successful they're going to be.
Yes.
So I tell faculty when we're talking at the beginning of the semester, look, in order for us to get our students, you need to know their names. The first thing is to know their names, right? Because they can't hide from you, right? So you know their names, they can't hide from you. And I'm like, okay, Rob, I need you to go ahead and turn this assignment in, right? So there's a personal connection. So that's very, very important.
And that's why it's okay to go to the college in your city or your county. You don't have to go away. If that's what you want to do, that's okay too.
Right.
But sometimes it's in that smaller atmosphere and in that home community type thing that one can be encouraged. Now, I started out at IRSC, and I went back a little later in life, had no idea that whether I could do it or not. But I do remember for professors that made a tremendous difference, especially my communication English professor. And I remember him telling us a story about a young man who wanted to be a doctor, a medical doctor. And this young man was so behind in his reading skills and his comprehension and his writing skills. And yet he was so determined that he asked the professor, can he meet with him after school or some free time that he had? And he said he couldn't turn the young man down. And he said that he met with him, but in the back of his mind, he said, oh, when we become that doctor. But he didn't say it to him.
Right.
He just worked with him, and he was able to get his C in his class. But years later, the young man came back to the college with his doctorate degree to show this professor that he had made it and to thank him for what he had done in his life, to be a part of him, helping him in the process. So no matter, we have doctors that they will only see students in school. We just don't know that, right? Or B or whatever.
Right,
They're not
exactly.
all geniuses, but
Right.
they're hard workers and just determined to get the job done. So you have all these different degrees. Now tell me, and you look so young. I'm not going to ask you what your age is on stage, but you know, you look so young. So you have all these degrees. Tell me what that is all about.
Well, I went to The Ohio State University, go Bucks, and earned my undergraduate degree in 4 years. I was on scholarship, and my mother was like, so if you don't finish in 4, I'm not sure what's going to happen. So I was determined to finish in 4 years. And then actually, I didn't know really what I wanted to do. I got my degree in English. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So I kind of, I hung out a little bit. I went to New York, I went to Jersey, and hung out, and I realized, hey, you got to do something with your life, right? And then I went back to Ohio, and I would start taking some courses, and I was like, well, maybe I want to go into residence life, because I enjoyed the res life experience at Ohio State. And I said, oh, I'll be a hall director for the rest of my life. These lofty goals. And then I decided that I wanted to go back and get a master's degree, but I also knew that studying English at Ohio State was great, but we didn't really study anybody that looked like me.
Okay.
And so I realized that, okay, I read a lot. I read a lot of the classics, but I wanted to read books about myself, about my history, my place in America as an African American. And so I went to SUNY Albany to get a master's in Africana Studies to actually study the African diaspora in terms of me, which is a great experience. It was really cold, though. Upstate New York is really, really cold in wintertime, but it was a great experience. But then I came back and I worked at Ohio State in Minority Affairs for a couple of years. But then I realized, I said, hey.
You were the Dean of Minority Affairs here?
I was the Administrative Director of Minority Affairs at IRC, yes, for 2 years. So, but I went back to school to get a master's in creative writing because also I love to write fiction, so I wanted to do that. And then I realized, okay, I have all these degrees, but I need a job, or actually a career. And then I realized that.
How long did it take you?
Well, it took me 12 years. 4 years undergrad, 1.5 years for both of my masters, and 4 years for my PhD.
So you have 2 masters.
2 master's degrees, yes. And I remember telling my PhD chair, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get out in 4 years. He was like, really? I said, yeah, we're in Texas. So, so I'm gonna get out in 4 years. So I did that in 4 years, and then I did a postdoc at the University of Houston in African American Studies, which is great. And then Marvin Hobson, who's actually a professor at the college, we were classmates at SUNY Albany. And so he was working at IRC, and he said, well, they're looking for an English professor. And so I said, I had only been to Florida 1 time in my life.
Okay.
And my second time was when I came to interview.
Oh, wow.
And then my 3rd time was when I moved here.
Wow, okay. And so now we're blessed with you to have you in this community. No, I'm very serious about that. State statutes say that African American studies is to be merged in with all of the other subjects throughout school, okay? And doesn't give a consequence for not doing it, so a lot of times it's not being done.
Right.
I'm very frank with you, and our teachers are so busy just trying to keep grades up. But tell us, how important is that to be within the classrooms, with not just, I want to say especially for the African American child, but really for every child, to get the history of African American people, so that all can be enlightened in that area. How important is that? I mean, the state statute now, and why do you think it's so important?
Well, again, I think you have generations of folks who don't understand American history. I tell people all the time, Black history is American history.
Yes, that's why it's important for all children.
So it's important for everyone to understand what's going on, but I also think it's important to understand the history before slavery, right? Because usually we just get, Black folks were enslaved.
Well, and how well does that make a child feel to hear that all the time? Right?
And even my
it's
students,
not the whole story.
It's not the whole story. And even my students at the collegiate level, they only know that story. So I think it's important to back up and have those real conversations about the diaspora, about what happened before the enslavement period, and then to talk about the advancements that were made by African American folks, Latino folks, in this country, but particularly as Black folks who actually really, if we think about it, built the country, right? So we need to make sure that everyone truly understands that and the importance of that.
Yeah,
and
not to mention before, the history before. I mean, the African was a leader in so many areas and inventions and different things that were done, and was a leader at one time. And so it is extremely important because that child needs to know where they came from, how powerful their people were, not just back then, but even the inventors and the different people that made America great.
Right.
Came in all colors and sizes and so forth. And our children need to know that. It is extremely important. I'm glad you went back, and my daughter went to Howard University, and she was in gifted program here in St. Lucie County, and you know, we went to the school, and you know how you just look at the face of the school, it's so old, and you know, and that type of thing. And I was like, oh my God, I'm leaving my child here and watching this here at school. But that's where she went, and it was the best thing for her to go there. And then she had a little experience too as a student with that turned her away from her own color and people. And you know, like we're talking about teachers, how important teachers are in that environment that child is in. And because she was so highly IQ, she was teased a lot from her own color. And so, you know, it turned her off. And I had to start taking her to the library as mom and making her check out books that had to do with her own people, so that she could understand the plight and the dilemma and what the reason behind a lot of children go through now. Okay, what does getting a good education mean to you, Dr. Hoey? And how important is it in the scope of things?
Well, I can honestly say that it saved my life. Right? And reading and being able to explore different worlds, different ideas, being able to see an African-American culture is not monolithic, right? Being able to see these different aspects of my culture really saved me, because you know, when you're smart and an African-American person, you do get teased, right? But what I saw in the stuff that I read was that I could be all these things and still be a part of my culture and still be successful. So it really saved me from myself and from self-doubt. And that's what I try to impart upon my students. You're not going to walk out of my classroom after a semester and be a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, but you're going to walk out with some skills to help you develop. So I let students know that my expectations of you are very high, and I'm going to help you get there. Right? So for me, education has allowed me to help other students understand that they can also be great at what they want to be great at. But I also think it tells us that you still have to put some work into it.
Yes, everything takes work.
Right, and I tell students, it's not an option for you not to do work in my course.
I mean, you could flip those hamburgers, but you got to work.
You got to work at it.
So if you're going to get, like I had a young person say to me, very high IQ, did very well in school, but they feel as if they can just make it out in the world without going any further, you know. And you know, I'm telling, and he's saying, oh, but it's such hard work. Well, of course it is. You're out there now doing hard work for almost minimum wage. So just refocus and do the hard work over here and get what you need. And as I was talking with the other speaker earlier, guest that was here, education does not have to be you have to go to college.
Right.
But you need to get a skill. Any skill that one masters is education.
Exactly.
And that is what we have to understand. If you want to be a mechanic, you need to be the best mechanic you could possibly be, get all the education you can get. And then that will make room for itself.
Exactly.
You know, and it's the same thing with, you mentioned flipping burgers. Well, you can be a manager.
And you
don't
can,
have to
you can
stay
own,
you don't
you
have
can
to
franchise.
Right,
yeah.
You can own. So you don't have to stay there in that same position, working so hard day after day and not applying yourself in the other area that will cause you to go up in that career, in that field. Now, I don't know if you mentioned anyone yet. You talked about your teachers, and so I know they were mentors to you, and your mom was a mentor. And you did say you came from a poor background. So how did your mom, or was it mom, that kept you from getting involved in certain things that many times poverty, drugs, alcoholism, these things come a lot of times with poverty. How did you stay away gang banging and that type of thing in the poor area?
I had a black mama.
Yeah,
So
well, we all had one. But
that means that
but
she
your mama
was,
had a little bit more going on.
she was, excuse me, she was very vigilant. I mean, I knew I had to come home. I had to do my homework. I mean, she expected me to do well in school.
Are you an only child?
No, middle child.
Okay.
So I had to come home.
How many siblings?
It's 3 of us.
Okay.
Right. So middle child, oldest son. But the expectation was that you went to school and you came home and did your work. But what I also did was I got very involved in school. So I ran track. I played volleyball. I was editor of a magazine.
You stayed real busy.
I stayed busy.
Okay, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. That with parents who are able to really help their kid, they keep them so busy that they're worn out. They don't want to do nothing but what they have to do.
But I did have fun, though. I tell people all the time, I had fun in high school. I enjoyed my high school career.
Stuff,
I enjoyed college, but I also found things and activities that would help develop me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because I always found myself in these leadership roles, and so I was in these roles, and it was helping me develop. So that was very important to me. But I did have a Mr. Dwayne Crockram, my favorite English teacher, Mrs. Crockram, her husband. He was an alpha, and that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to become a member of my fraternity. But he had a son, but he also took me under his wing. And we would do a lot of stuff in his garden. I remember moving all these boulders. I'm like, why am I moving all these boulders? But we had these conversations about life, what it meant to be a man, a young boy, what it would mean to be a man. And so we really spent a lot of time talking about my future, the path that he took to get to where he was. So he became that person, that male figure in my life. There's a lot of strong women figures
in the community. So we have a lot of people that can be those male figures and that those females, as you said, figure in the community. The butterfly lady, and I think we have about 45 seconds.
Oh, 45 seconds.
So tell us, please, about this book.
Well, I wanted to write a book about Black love and what that means for our community and how what we'll do to get it, what we'll do, what happens when we lose it, and how do we survive that, right? And I wanted to set it in Cleveland, Ohio, because that is where that's where I'm from. Those are the neighborhoods that I know. So I wanted to write that novel to really explore that, but also explore the things of masculinity, identity, mother-son relationships. So it's a novel that, at the heart of it, I think of it as a love story to Black people in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, well, I hope you get me a book.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll pay for it if I need to, but just get me a book.
Yes.
Dr. Hoey, thank you so much for coming out of your busy schedule.
No, I appreciate it.
Twice this month for me. I appreciate you so much, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Dr. Mills.
And the representation that you are for our young people here in this community. We appreciate you dearly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hoey.
Thank you.